BizTech's Trade Conversation Show. Our guest for today is Caroline Berube. She's the president of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. Now, since its inception in 1983, CanCham Singapore has grown to be one of Singapore's most recognized international business associations. Now, its mission is to create beneficial bilateral ASEAN and Pan-Asian business opportunities through high-quality networking events, publications, services, and seminars. Now, to tell us more about CanCham, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian, for inviting CanCham to speak about our chamber this morning. So we're like a 300-member Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, and we keep growing. Some of our members are Canadian, fully owned Canadian, and some are Singaporean or from other countries in the world, incorporated in Singapore, but wanting to grow and learn more about Canada business, inbound and outbound investment. So our members are a mix. We have like big companies like MNC, but we also have small and medium-sized companies from different industries. So the one that you may know, for example, in terms of bigger members would be like the banks. We have TD Bank, we have RBC, Scotiabank, Bank of Montreal, and a few others. We also have a few big insurance companies like Manulife, and we also have like quite a few number of SMEs, which are really well known in the region. We don't always hear about them, but they're like very big niche in their industry. One of them, for example, is Moment Factory in the media and entertainment industry.
That's interesting because, you know, a lot of times people kind of interchangeably think that Canadian companies are actually American companies because of that North American link. So what would you say that are some of key industries that Canada is really good at?
I would say we have a few good industry that we're well known for. We have a lot of ICT, what I mean, like, you know, like technology and communication. We have clean tech, we have infrastructure, we have life science, we have agri-food. We have a few hubs in Canada, like we're well known in the media and entertainment industry, like in Montreal. And of course, financial and insurance sector. Okay. So these are probably the one that we're well known for.
Now, I want to zoom in then on our region here, the Asia Pacific region. Now, since Justin Trudeau's premiership, basically, there's really been a shift to engage the APAC region. Now, it's been 8 years since he's become prime minister. Tell us a little bit about how trade relations have developed with Canada and the region, not only in Singapore, but the whole region as a whole.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thank you, Brian. Something that has been a big thing in 2022, especially like right after the G20, there's a big like Indo-Pacific region strategy that was put into place by Justin Trudeau as PM. It was in late November. And the goal of this strategy is that, like promoting peace and security between countries, expanding trade and supply chain in the region, like investing in connecting people between Canada and Asia, building sustainable energy, and finally showing that we're active partner as Canadian in Asia. So this has been a big, a big milestone, late November 2022 that PM Trudeau decided to put into place. And it's probably due to the fact that Mary Ang, the international trade minister, came a few times to Singapore in 2022, understanding the growth of Asia and that it's a place that we have to be as Canadian.
Now, so Caroline, then, in line with that, Canada applied to join the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement, which was originally signed in June 2020 between Singapore, Chile, and New Zealand. Now, talk us through that, and where is Canada at the moment with that?
It is growing, and Canada, I'm not an expert on that specific treaty, but like Canada has been signing a numerous number of treaties. They signed the CPTPP agreement, the Canadian Asian Free Trade Agreement, and the negotiation is underway for that one. So Canada is really proactive. We also have a free trade agreement between Canada and some countries in Asia. And also we have DTT, which is the double tax treaty agreement between Canada and Singapore and other countries in Asia. So Canada is really keen from a trade perspective to see how both economies can benefit from each other and work together to grow different business sectors.
Now, within the Singapore context, then, what is the engagement level that CanCham does with the Singapore government in terms of helping your members operate not only in Singapore but in the region?
Yeah, this is also a very good question. So we do, of course, we have our partners. We work with the Singapore Business Federation, as you probably know. We also work with the EDB, like we'll refer our clients or our members to work with EDB and also Enterprise Singapore. Enterprise Singapore and EDB have different offices in the region, which is also good for our clients. So once our members are coming to Asia, we will put them in touch with these different organizations. And of course, if they want to go to other markets, they will be working with these offices from the Singapore government. So we do work closely with each other because it's in the interest of our members.
Now, what are some of the challenges, Caroline, that Canadian companies face in operating in Singapore? I think the big 800-pound gorilla now is cost.
Yeah, that's a very good a good item to discuss. Yes, cost. I would say like a few items that are challenging for members, like, the fact that Canada and Asia, like it's on the other side of the world, right? So the distance, it's not like, if you want to have a meeting with a business partner in Singapore or another like companies in Asia that you want to discuss, like, you have to take a 20 to 24-hour flight to get on the ground in Asia. So this, I think it's probably challenging. And if you keep in mind that a lot of our members are SMEs, of course, we talked about the big MNC earlier, but the big part of our Canadian economy is SMEs. And SMEs, as you know, like have limited resources of money, time, and people. So for them to come to Asia, like it's very time consuming. It takes time for a CEO or COO or whatever, like, key people coming from the company come to Singapore. It takes time, it takes resources. So this is definitely a challenge that our members have. Though what is great is like, once they arrive in Singapore, it's a soft landing in many ways, in the sense that, like we have different provinces from the Canadian government who are represented in Singapore. They have people to help these Canadian companies on the ground and to give them direction of where they should be going, which market they should go. Because as we all know, Asia is a fragmented market. It's not like, you come to Singapore and it's going to be like English, safe and stable, legal, financial system. Like members will have to learn. And coming to Singapore is a first landing, but then after they need to understand and decide which part of Asia they will target to sell, to distribute, to manufacture, to do negotiation with their trade partner. So I would say like, like costs of time, financial costs are two challenges. They can be fixed, but it does take time. And as long as they are aware, then like, some solution for members is to hire people on the ground. So they don't have to, the CEO, the high level people from Canada don't have to come all the time to Singapore. But once they have people on the ground and they're big enough and they can afford having good resources in Asia, it is definitely a lot easier for them to grow and tap on the Asian market.
Caroline, so which brings an interesting question. Since the backbone of the Canadian economy is SMEs, is there an awareness of the opportunities that are in Asia, or is the awareness level only at a very superficial level? Yes, there's a lot of opportunities in Asia, but perhaps Asia looks too hard to crack.
Also, very good question, Brian. Thank you. You know what? I think people in Canada, like the SMEs, they understand and they see the potential of Asia, and they get really, really excited. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a bunch of people coming, and we have trade mission coming from Canada to Asia, like to Singapore and to the rest of Asia, especially like, now post-COVID. It's getting, again, super active. We have many companies coming. but like it's challenging because of the language. They go to China, for example, or they go to Indonesia, like there's a language barrier. So it's not only flying and being there physically, it's understanding the market a bit. Like if you negotiate in Asia, like with many companies, like you'll negotiate. It's not going to be done like in one morning. It takes time to build a relationship, the guangxi, and once the relationship is built, it's not done overnight. Like, you start to negotiate the contract. And again, it's not like a one-day thing in Asia. It takes time to finalize the agreement. So a lot of people underestimate this challenge, but because they're so excited about targeting and tapping on the Asian market, they still come, and they're excited and they believe in the market and the growth. Like 65% of the population is in Asia, worldwide. So of course, like for many of our clients, we're like in different type of industry. It's a great number of people to tap for their market.
So then on the flip side of the equation, one of the ways to actually to smoothen the process is for then local businesses who want to attract investments or partners to really reach out to folks like you, isn't it? Because you said the Canadian government has different soft landing points for each of the provinces, especially say Quebec, which is basically French speaking. They probably need a little bit more hand-holding in Asia to start that process. What can local companies do? And when I say local companies, I use that broadly. Local companies either in Singapore, in Indonesia, or Malaysia, for example. How can they engage with Business Canada better?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, so the goal of the chambers, and we have like a few initiatives now where we start to work a lot more together, all president of the different Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Asia. So we have regular call now, so we can help, like, let's say there's a member going with, I don't know, Indonesian Chamber of Commerce member, but is coming to Singapore, going to Thailand. We'll make sure that, they can get in touch with us. So this will help. For example, you mentioned Investissement Québec, which is one arm of the Canadian government, which is on site in Singapore. They also have a few other offices in the region, so they can also help companies coming from Quebec. And like the High Commissioner, the office, like, they're always keen. They're split in different departments in industry, so they have resources to help our Canadian companies. And of course, like, being the chamber, like, we'll know people will be able to help Canadian companies coming and say, like, listen, you should speak to the Canadian government, you should speak to maybe these local companies, and then you can tap on the knowledge we have in other countries in Asia because of the chamber connection. So we really try to, like, the Canadian community is not as big as other countries, right? We're like about 45 million people in Canada. So of course, we're much smaller than other economy, and we don't have, like, the same, I would say, probably resources than other countries because we're a smaller population. But it's a population that is very entrepreneur. They want to learn and they want to come on the ground. And, we really try to work together. So we have 5 pillars, for example, in Singapore. We have like the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, we have the High Commissioner, we have the Canadian Alumni, we have the Canadian Association, and we have, like, 5 of us, 5 different type of group that work together to help differently, like, companies coming to Asia.
So that sounds like a really good network, because this is a message that perhaps we sometimes don't hear from other chambers of commerce. You've obviously got a little ecosystem that you've built together to basically, as to use your words from earlier in the interview, have a soft landing in Singapore, in Asia, as a first port of call.
Yeah, we do. Like, we're closely knit. We do try to help each other, and yeah, we try the best we can for sure.
Now, Caroline, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, something that is very interesting, like, I compare a lot Singapore and Canada in many ways, of course, like, different size of population, different size of country, obviously, but, like, both economies have a big focus on SMEs. Both economies have a similar currency, especially right now, it's about 1:1. We have very stable legal system, a lot of companies, and I talk a lot about outbound coming to Singapore, right? From Canada to Singapore, which, like, people will come because it's a very stable, it's a soft landing to grow in the region. But a lot of Singapore companies are also now coming to Canada for similar reason. It's a great entry to go to the America, like it's a safe environment from a legal, tax, corporate perspective. And we have very niche industry, as we mentioned earlier. So, like I think that's why Singapore and Canada can work quite easily together, because we have a lot of similarities in many aspects.
That's interesting. Now, I want to then ask you a question, because obviously there are dark clouds globally from an economic perspective. What is the lens that your company, your Canadian companies are looking through when they look at opportunities in the region right now?
Like a lot of people talk about deglobalization. I like to use the term reglobalization. I think it's a lot more positive, even if it has been a tough last 3 years. Economy is kind of looming. People are like, should we invest more time and resources to come to Asia? I always believe that we should do it, even if it seems tough, because like we don't want to go. If a lot of people will decide and will be reluctant to invest time and resources to come to Asia. It's like, like we should invest on our core business in Canada, for example, but you should do it when nobody's doing it. So when it's growing again, when it's thriving, you're already on site, and you have planted seeds in your business in Asia. So when you're ready to go, the seeds are already there and you can grow.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Now, Caroline, for the chamber itself this year, what are some specific activities and key goals that you have this year for CanCham as president?
Thank you. So we are quite busy. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of trade missions are coming to Asia again now, which nobody came for 3 years. So now it's happening, which is great. We have different industries coming. We have a big conference with organized by an organization in Canada, like the Canadian Asian Foundation. So they have 25 or 26 university principals coming at late February. And so alumni are coming from the region, but also business people are coming. So this is one big milestone that we're working with this organization. I personally had an initiative called the G20 series. I just think if we work together, if we collaborate together, we can just all learn and grow and help better our members. So the goal of that series was to put together like chambers and high commissioner, ambassador together, countries that are member of the G20. So we had our last event, our first event of the series, like on Tuesday. We have about 120 people. We had like Italy, we had Mexico, we had the UK, and we had Canada working together. So we had ambassador or senior trade commissioner and all president of Chamber of Commerce from these countries working together, discussing challenges that our members face and how we can help each other to tackle these challenges. So we have another one, for example, in March, which will be the second one, will be on food security, involving other countries from the G20, and on for the rest of the year. We also have like a one woman event in tech, of course, being a female president of the chamber, I had to add a little diversity twist. So we're having an event on this in late March. So we have a few challenges and goals like this, of course, to continue to grow our membership, for companies wanting to go to Canada, but also like members who are coming to Asia and they want to be part of our chamber and tap on our knowledge and network. So we have and of course we work closely with SBF, whenever they have like poll or questions about how we feel as representative of the Canadian community in Singapore, how we can give feedback, which can be constructive and help everyone. So we have these few things going on at the moment.
Yeah, sounds like you've got a very interesting calendar in the pipeline for the rest of 2023, and I wish you well on that. But Caroline, it's been a fascinating conversation. I learned a lot about Canada and what you're doing. But before you leave, any final thoughts you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think what is good to keep in mind is Canada is a very welcoming economy and population, and we're always happy to help, and we're quite friendly. I think that's what I keep hearing from people. Oh, you're Canadian, of course, you'll be happy to help and contribute and bring your input. So like reach out if you're interested to invest in Canada. We definitely have resources we can introduce you to. And for Canadian companies who are listening or are interested to come to Asia, like we definitely have a tight network of people and groups in Singapore who can help.
Now, Caroline, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting us to speak about Canada and our chamber.
Now, we've been speaking to Caroline Berube, the president of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce Singapore. I'm Brian Fernandez, and this has been BizTech's Trade Conversation Show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It will also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.